Hold on. Okay, so just start with when you were first diagnosed and what signs they noticed.
Okay, well, I wasn't really, like, diagnosed. It was a really weird situation. I just, I had done really well in, like, elementary school always, and middle school, my grades were pretty good. And then when I started about, like, 8th grade and 9th grade, my grades started to slip. I was wondering why, and I guess I had a lot of different, like, distractions. So I was diagnosed really, really late. And my mom just took me to the regular physician, and I was telling him how, like, I had a hard time looking people in the eyes, always fidgeting. And I would sit down and try to do a homework assignment, and something, like, on the wall next to me could be interesting. It could be, like, the paint chipping, and I find that more interesting than whatever I was doing at the time. So he just said that we'd start out with, like, a small dosage of, I had the Adderall, and I started with just, I think, 10 milligrams. And it started to work, but when it's such a small dosage, you don't see much of a change. So he's like, well, let's increase it a little bit, and then you can see if there's a difference. And then I was able to actually, like, pay attention in class. My friends were telling me that I actually listened to the stories they told me. And I decided that it was good for me, so I started increasing it up to about 30 milligrams. And it helped a lot, and it also makes you lose weight. I mean, but it really helps with my grades and my schoolwork and stuff like that. And it made things easier, because I was wondering why, like, my friends could get a paper done in an hour, and it took me 3 hours just to decide a topic. So, and listening, like, in class, I would always get in trouble for talking or moving around or not listening to the teacher, and it just helped me be able to sit still.
So how aware were you of what was going on, like the condition, everything it entailed?
I wasn't really that much aware, because I feel like I was always used to being not, like, hyper, but I always wanted to talk, or I always wanted to be doing something fun. I hated being bored, and I always associated, like, not doing anything with boredom. So I never associated myself with being, like, hyper. And then after I started taking this is when you kind of see, like, oh, you know what, I can be calm. And that's where you notice the difference, or I can focus on something. And then I started to be aware that, like, oh, this is what made me, I guess, different. And so it just made everything easier to even, like, communicate with people. But as you can see, my medicine's wearing off at the moment, so I kind of look around and stuff like that.
How did you feel about having the title of being different, and how did your friends react to that? Like, would you have to explain it to them?
They didn't even know, because, like, I have such a small case of it that, like, they didn't even know. Like, the only reason my dosage got higher is because after a while you can start to get immune to the medicines and stuff like that. So you just have to sometimes increase it or change it up so that it doesn't stop working. But, like, they didn't even know. They just thought I liked to talk a lot or was hyper. And then now the medicine kind of mellows me out, and so they're like, at first they're like, is something wrong? Like, are you okay? And then I was like, no, I'm just on Adderall. And they're like, oh, that's cool. They didn't really care. I mean, I feel like nowadays people don't really care about things being different anymore. It's just everyone's different in some way.
How much did your parents know about it, like, growing up?
My mom's a therapist, and she teaches special education, like, middle school, so she knew right away. That's how she noticed it, and that's why she took me to the doctor. So she basically diagnosed me, which isn't really correct, because you're not supposed to diagnose family, but she knew a lot about it. She had a lot of students with ADHD, ADD, emotionally disturbed students and everything. So,
what about being in college now? How is it having to take medication in college?
My first year of college, I decided not to take it and decided not to go to class. So now that I'm taking it, my grades have been so much better. It's hard with all the distractions at school, because, like, you're in a dorm and your friends are right next to you. So if they knock on your door and, like, you want to go see a movie or you want to hang out instead of doing homework, it's easy to get distracted by other things. So I have to make sure I take the medicine if I want my grades, if I want to go to class, if I want to pay attention, because there's so many more distractions now than ever before.
Do you think there's any way around not taking your medication? Like, would there be any other, like, were you aware of anything else you could do, any alternative treatments?
There are, like, some vitamins I know. I used to take this vitamin, it was called, like, Brain Pep or something like that. And it kind of helped, but I don't think there's anything that makes me as mellow. Like, I still have some of the, like, I guess, hyper. I still want to move around and stuff, but I'm with the vitamins, I'm actually able to, I guess, focus on my schoolwork, but it doesn't change, like, moving around or talking a lot or anything like that. So there are probably other natural ways, but I'm fine with this for now.
How do you feel about the stigma that's usually associated with things like ADHD, ADD, in society, like in the social media or just in general, people's perceptions of what it is?
I feel like with ADHD, people see it as like such a big deal in comparison to ADD, when really, like, there's definitely a difference, and a lot of times you can actually tell someone with ADHD physically, whereas ADD you don't. So I feel like in the media, they kind of make a big deal out of one and not the other, and they probably should focus on both and focus on the differences so that people understand that they may not actually have ADHD. They may just have ADD, because most regular people have just ADD. And if you get, I guess, over-medicated, like, that can be bad for you because it changes your personality. I actually had a friend who was medicated for ADHD, and she didn't have it. She had ADD. And so then her medicine dosage was really high, and it made her, like, boring. She became, like, depressed, and it, like, Adderall can cause you to feel depressed, and I think she was on Ritalin, but I don't know. I feel like the media should do a better job of explaining what they are and showing them in a different light, not as just the bad kid, because a lot of ADHD people are known as, you know, the disturbance in class.
Is that how you felt?
I lucked out and actually had other kids in class that had ADHD, and a lot of times they were more noticeable than I was. So I never really felt like the bad kid, but I did always feel like my teachers were, like, annoyed with me.
You felt, did you feel like they weren't really aware of how to interact with you? Do you think they were educated about that?
I actually think that teachers that work with elementary school kids are better aware of it, and they handle it better than teachers in, like, high school or middle school, because you go from classroom to classroom, you have different teachers for different subjects, so they're just kind of like bringing you in and then shipping you out, and they don't want to get involved in the students, and therefore they're not really paying attention to your specific needs.
So you felt like in high school they didn't really...
Yeah, they weren't educated enough. They didn't take the time to pay attention and realize that, you know, maybe it wasn't I just didn't want to listen. Maybe I couldn't, and stuff like that.
Would growing up, what do you think separated you from just the bad kids? What was it about you that made them think, okay, this girl has a different condition? Because there are kids who act out and are bad and that are hyper.
Because my mom's strict and wouldn't allow it. And my mom's a teacher, so, like, I always respected teachers, and I always respected authority, so I never really tried to get in trouble. I hated getting in trouble. I hate being yelled at. I hate having to listen to a lecture or anything like that. So I try to avoid it at all costs. And, like, my symptoms are different. I'm just really talkative. And, like, now with texting and everything like that, like, if I'm in a situation or if I'm in class, I have to be doing something else too. Like, I can't just be taking notes. I have to be texting, or I have to be on my phone or on the computer doing 2 things or 3 things at a time, more so than getting out of my chair in class and, you know, disturbing the teacher or making jokes that are inappropriate. Like, that just wasn't my personality.
Okay. So I know you already said that you felt like the media doesn't really represent ADHD or ADD well, but, like, do you have any other general comments about pharmaceutical companies and social media?
Pharmaceutical companies need to tell the side effects. I got put on Adderall, and I developed, I guess, depression after it. And then I was put on another medicine, which is called Lexapro, for depression, and it made me gain weight, and the Adderall makes you actually lose weight. So they, like, cancel each other out. And I went back to the doctor to get off of the Lexapro, and the depression came back. But I was so confused because, like, I didn't have it before I started taking the Adderall. And I realized that that's what it was coming from. And that was never told to me, that could be a side effect, that it could change your personality or give you mood swings or it increases it for me. It increases like my emotions because I become focused on something. So if something bad happens, I'm focused on the bad thing instead of being able to think of like positive things also. So I feel like they need to do a better job telling side effects of drugs. They don't need to like have that guy that talks really, really fast at the end of the commercial telling you all the things that can happen to you, like cancer and a heart attack. Like, slow it down. Let me know what I'm getting into before I medicate myself.
So, because medication is so important, or it's, well, I guess they market it as being really important for solving your kid's problem. Do you feel like that gives them more leeway because they market it as being so important? They kind of get away with not educating people more about it.
Exactly. And because a lot of people don't go and get the education themselves. Like, it's a quick fix to just get the medication, fix their kid and go. When really they should take the time to research themselves, see if there's like a homeopathic way to do it. Like my mom started getting, there's actually an ADHD magazine, which is for both ADHD and ADD. So they need to educate themselves because obviously the pharmaceutical companies aren't doing it right now.
Okay, well, I don't know what else to ask you. If you have any other comments.
I don't think so. It's just, I feel like people shouldn't assume that certain children are just bad because then it doesn't help that child get anywhere. People need to take their time and realize, there could be something else going on there. Maybe they do need medicine, or maybe they are having a really tough time paying attention. Maybe it's not that they're being rude or disrespectful. So I just feel like a lot of people should take the time to get to know someone before they make a judgment.
Okay, thank you. This stuff is perfect. Okay.